Hi, I'm Nolan Dalla, and I'm here with Doyle Brunson, who probably needs no introduction to anybody who loves poker, loves gambling, knows Las Vegas. Doyle and I are going to sit here and have dinner at Roma's Deli on Spring Mountain. It's right off of Spring Mountain and Jones. It's about a block to the east of the intersection of Spring Mountain and Jones. So come to Roma Deli. They're going to be open, I think, till 4 in the morning, possibly, during the World Series of Poker, which is coming up. And this is a great restaurant. Honest to goodness, I've been here 40 or 50 times. I don't remember how many, but I've had so many great meals here, and I'm having meal number 51. It's already been served. So here we go. And I'm going to eat here, and Doyle's going to get his salad in just a moment. We're going to eat, and we're not going to talk about gambling or poker, Doyle.
Okay, good.
Tonight we're going to do something very different, something that you wanted to do for a very long time. We're going to talk about Westerns, Western movies. Doyle, let me just come out and ask you, what is it about the classic American Western, about Western movies that's so special?
It just seems like they always have a good story line to them, and most of them turn out to the good guy wins usually. I don't know, and I grew up around guns. There's always a lot of gun play. Like Todd and I used to go out shooting all the time. And, I don't know. It's kind of a Texas thing too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And I lived out in the country. We had horses and cows and so forth, and so it just kind of strikes a chord.
Yeah, Westerns are really, I've heard them described as morality tales. Like, there's the white hats and the black hats, and as you say, usually the good people win in the end, usually. And too bad life isn't always like that. But there are a lot of lessons for boys. I grew up in Texas, as you did, and I remember going and seeing, a lot of the same movies we're going to talk about here. But there were always life lessons and things that we learned from the films. Can you talk about what you learned from from growing up watching westerns?
I guess I just kind of equated it to the lifestyle that we live. It was always out in the country, and it was just cows, like I said, cows and the horses and everything, and it just struck a chord with me. And plus, I guess we went to the movies at Sweetwater, and only had 2 movie theaters, and we'd go on Saturdays, and it was always a Western. So I guess maybe that's the reason I got to like a Western. So
that's all they played in the movie theater. That's
yeah.
What's your favorite Western actor of all time? I mean, there's so many great actors. If you had to boil down to 1 or 2, who would they be?
John Wayne.
John Wayne,
yeah.
The Duke. What was it about John Wayne that was special to you?
Thank you.
And while you're talking, I guess we have to kind of talk and eat at the same time. So you were talking about John Wayne. What was so special about him?
I don't know. I guess like he was a man's man. I guess is the best way to portray him. He actually almost always was the good guy, as a rule. Sometimes his character wasn't exactly pure, but usually his motives were good.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever meet John Wayne?
No, I didn't.
But you met a fellow named, we're going to talk about in a minute. His name is Jack Elam. A lot of great character actors, and Chill Wills, I think you knew, and Slim Pickens. We talked about these great. If you don't recognize these names, look them up. You'll know their faces because they were in dozens of westerns and other films. You actually played poker, I think, or you're familiar with some. You have some poker stories about Jack Elam. Tell us about that.
Well, it's just what I always heard that John Ford and John Wayne liked to play poker. that might be one of the reasons that they made so many films together. And they would stay up all night. And Jack Elam was also supposedly, I've heard from different people that came to the World Series of Poker and actors, that they all agreed that he was the best poker player in Hollywood. So I guess maybe that's the reason.
So before they had all these Hollywood games we hear about today, they were actually playing poker back in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
They were private poker games, huh?
Yeah. They played. I know Maureen O'Hara. She played in a lot of John Wayne movies, you know, and she said that it was like being one of the boys. She actually played poker with them, and they all liked to drink, and so they would drink and play cards all night. And it looked like it would affect the acting, but it must not have.
Doyle, I'm going to let you eat your salad, and I'll go into a little bit of what we're going to do here. The story here behind why we're sitting here talking about Westerns, it started online over social media. And Doyle and I have been friends many times. I've interviewed you, I think 10, 15 times. I forgot how many, but it's always I always learn something every time I talk to Doyle, and his life's so fascinating. Obviously, a lot of great poker stories that a lot of us have read and heard. But we got off on this topic about 6 months ago. We were talking about movies. And if you don't follow Doyle Brunson, it's at Texas Dolly or at Doyle Brunson? What's your Twitter handle?
Texas Dolly.
At Tex Dolly or Texas Dolly?
Tex.
At Tex Dolly. At Tex Dolly, you can follow Doyle. And Doyle's talking about politics. He's talking about movies. He reacts to. He's very, very active, and still gives you his opinion about a lot of things. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. But Doyle and I got off on this thing like, he said, let's talk about Westerns. And if there's anybody to talk about Westerns, it's going to be with Doyle. And I love movies. But I asked Doyle, I said, Doyle, please put together a list of your favorite Westerns. And I'm expecting Doyle to come back to me with a list of, 10, 20, whatever the number is, that would be reasonable. That'd be a lot of movies to come up with, 20 movies. Sure enough, a few days ago, I get this list, and it was Doyle Brunson's 60 favorite Westerns of all time. 60. So I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And I said, we have to do something with this because Doyle has put a lot of time, love, energy, thought into his favorite Westerns. And we're going to talk about not all 60 because we don't have time, but we're going to talk about close to half of them. And we're also going to count down. The top 20 or so, and certainly the top 10, we're going to spend a little more time on those. But in case you don't know, stick around. We're going to be here for a while. We're going to have our dinner, and you're going to find out what is Doyle Brunson, Texas Dolly's favorite Western of all time. And most of you won't get it. It's a surprise to me. What are your top 10? We're going to get to those. Let's start off. I'm not going to go with 60. I'm going to go all the way down the list to number 50. A movie that we're familiar with as Texans. The Alamo and John Wayne. I think Richard Widmark plays Daniel Boone, as I recall.
No, John Wayne was Daniel.
He was Daniel Boone?
Daniel Boone.
Travis, who plays Richard Boone, plays...
Jim Bowie.
Jim Bowie, excuse me. Okay, there you go. So he knows Texas history better than I do. Anyway, so the Alamo's made. It was not really critically acclaimed, but for people from Texas, the Alamo is just one of those movies. Why does the Alamo make your list?
I think the interesting thing, I think that movie broke John Wayne.
Financially,
I think he financed it, and for some reason it wasn't a big hit at the box office. I don't know, it's just, like I say, it's the moments in movies that you remember, and that's what makes them special to you. And I can remember, a lot of the moments in the Alamo, I remember he had a fight with Richard Widmark when he first came to Texas. David Crockett and Jim Bowie they had some kind of a knife fight. And the interesting thing about that is it showed John Wayne being, very heroic ending, that he blew up all the ammunition and everything. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the history books think that he might have been one of the 3 or 4 Texans that surrendered. Buggy never would agree to that. But and Santa Anna executed him. But I'm not sure about that, but I know I've been told that.
I believe in the Alamo there was they built somewhere outside of San Antonio. They built a big set. It was millions of dollars. This is a lot of money to spend back in 1960 when they constructed really a reconfiguration of the Alamo. And I still think it's a tourist destination, or you can actually still go visit it. Which there's the real Alamo in San Antonio, but there's this movie set that's even bigger. And you ever been to that by chance?
I've been to the Alamo. I don't remember going to the set.
All right, so we'll move on down to number 48. We're going to skip 49, go to 48. Once Upon a Time in the West, which is a 1969 film. Sergio Leone, the Italian director, made all the spaghetti westerns, which a lot of people know, The Fistful of Dollars and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and we'll get to a lot of those in a moment. That does make your list, Once Upon a Time in the West, with Henry Fonda playing a bad guy, and I think Charles Bronson is in this movie. First of all, before we get to Once Upon a Time in the West, you're not a fan of spaghetti westerns, and I'd like to know why.
Well, they actually aren't realistic. I mean, like Clint Eastwood having a gunfight with 4 guys in what was that, Fistful of Dollars, where he just shot 4 guys before they could shoot him. That's not realistic, In John Wayne's movie, like The Shootist, I mean, it was him against 4 other guys, but he took them on one at a time, and it was. I mean, the American westerns are just a lot more realistic. Those spaghetti westerns are just a little bit flamboyant. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have a lot of action to them, but one guy can't shoot 6 or 7 guys before they shoot.
You like a sense of realism.
Yeah,
of course. So Once Upon a Time in the West is made, and it does make your list. And again, strange casting. Charles Bronson in the lead. I think Claudia Cardinal, the French actress, is in this film, and she was a real beauty at the time. And
Jack Elam was in it.
Yes, right. And then Henry Fonda is the stone cold killer. You remember the scene where he shoots the kid? He shoots like a 12-year-old boy.
That's the thing I remember about that movie is Henry Fonda, those ice blue eyes. I mean, I think that was one of his best acting jobs. And a lot of people, I guess maybe the reason it's on my list, a lot of lists that I see, it breaks that movie number 1, which I don't agree with, obviously, but it had a lot of good acting in there. Charles Bronson, I thought, was really, really good. That scene, is that the one where the 3 guys were waiting at the train?
I think so, yes, right. They're at the station, right.
Yeah. And Charles Bronson came in.
That's right, yeah.
Killed all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Jack Elam was one of them.
Yeah. Well, we won't give away too much. We'll move on to a movie that number 47 on your list. I saw this when I was in college, I think. And it's grown on me. It was Silverado. Kevin Costner, I believe, stars in Silverado. I haven't seen that movie in 30 years. I can't remember that much about it, but I remember it being, a very unique film. Why does Silverado make your list?
It was Kevin Costner. The black cowboy was
Danny Glover? Or?
Danny Glover.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just. It was a later movie. Most of my movies are back, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. This was probably in the 80s, maybe?
Yeah, it was mid-80s, right.
And so good westerns were becoming more and more rare. And so I guess that kind of impressed me a little bit.
Go down to 39. We're moving forward fast now. Lonely or the Brave, a 1962 film, Lonely or the Brave, the year I was born. And by the way, I've seen this movie once, but it was many years ago.
That one should be higher.
It should be higher, I think, too. Kirk Douglas is in this movie, and it's interesting that I did a little research on this film, and surprisingly, out of all the movies that Kirk Douglas has made, he's made over 100, this was his favorite film, which was Lonely or the Brave. What impressed you about that movie?
Oh, it was just, it was the character that he played. He went to jail to help a friend out to escape, and his friend wouldn't escape with him. And then so he got on his horse, and it shows how he escaped all the way across the country and all the trials that he went through to get there. And then he went across the highway, and a truck came along and hit him and his horse and killed him. And it was just a terrific movie. It was full of suspense the whole.
Yeah, I'd love to see that one again. That's one to put on your list to see. This one, number 36, Doyle. I should let you eat, by the way.
That's all right.
Keep asking you questions, and I will let you eat, I guess, eventually. This movie, I'm surprised, doesn't rank a little higher for you. It ranks higher for most critics. I would probably put it a little higher myself, and that's the Gary Cooper classic, I think, High Noon from the 1950s. And by the way, if you haven't seen High Noon, this is such a marvelous movie because Gary Cooper plays the lone sheriff, and all of the townspeople abandon him in his time of need when these bad guys are going to run into town, and he's got to face this mob on his own.
Including Grace Kelly. And that was a... maybe it should have been higher. I know most people have it way up on the list. Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling. That was the song that was really so catchy in it. And the fact, I remember the scene where he took his car, threw it on the ground, stomped off, and Grace Kelly was begging him to leave. He wouldn't leave. He said, "I'd never run from anybody." And Lloyd Bridges was his deputy.
Oh, wow. Right.
Right. He abandoned him too.
Yeah.
So it was just a...
Sometimes defending a lonely cause is a lonely thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was just being a man. He wasn't going to run. Frank Phillips, wasn't that his name? Frank something.
Wow. You do have a memory. Wow.
Wow. And I don't know. It was good, but I think there's a lot better.
The problem is if you rank it higher, you got to take somebody else off the list, and it's going to start getting really top heavy. We're going to go down to 32. This is one of my favorite movies. I remember seeing it as a kid, I believe. It's okay. Yeah. Which was the Richard Harris movie, A Man Called Horse. Yeah. What a remarkable film this was. Very shocking at the time. I remember being really kind of terrified by this movie because he was taken by Indians and captured. And what do you remember about A Man Called Horse?
I remember that he was the slave to the guy, the chief's mother. She had a rope on his neck, and that's why they called him A Man Called Horse. And all the men went off on a war party, and another band of Indians invaded that camp, and he went out and he took 2 or 3 scalps. The first time he killed 2 or 3 Indians, and he was a proper Englishman. He took the scalps.
Right.
And after that, he was a hero. And so he was the chief adopted him actually as his own son.
Yeah, the Indians adopted a white man and made him into the chief. And I remember, by the way, real quickie on this. I don't think it made your list. Was
The Return of a Man Named Morris?
Yeah, there was a sequel, right? A couple of years later. I don't recall if that was most sequels are not very good.
It wasn't real good.
Yeah. Number 28. You and I are going to fight about this, Doyle. I think go to Sergio Leone, the director again. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That is just one of my favorite movies. Not just westerns. One of my favorite movies of all time. The music alone, the soundtrack is just so perfect. The scenery, the 3 characters, Lee Van Cleef and Eli Wallach, University of Texas graduate, and Clint Eastwood as the good guy in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. What did you like about it, and maybe what did you not like about it? Why didn't it make your list a little higher?
I liked it. Well, again, a lot of it was unrealistic. That those guys killed, so many people. And I remember the showdown. Must have took 5 minutes. They were looking back at each other, and then he shot him.
Describe the showdown for people that haven't seen it. What is that showdown? It's a classic scene.
Well, Eli Wallach and Lee Van Cleef and Clint Eastwood, they were fighting over the skull, and so. What they call it? Blue Eyes or Blue something?
They called him Angel Eyes.
Angel Eyes, yeah. And so naturally Clint Eastwood was the fastest one with the gun, so he shot Angel Eyes, and then he took Tuco, and they were when they started their arrangements, Tuco would be going to be hung, and Clint Eastwood would shoot the rope, and he would ride off with the collection of the reward. So when at the end of the movie, he left Tuco standing up on that
Yeah.
thing with the rope around.
About ready to tumble and hang himself, he would have fallen. I never understood why Clint Eastwood was the good guy doing that to Tuco at the end of the movie. That was kind of a very cruel thing to do, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Tuco had been pretty mean.
Pretty mean too. That's true. All right, so we'll take a break here, and we'll come back and we'll finish up the list here with Doyle Brunson talking about his all-time favorite westerns. We got a lot more movies to cover. We're early down to number 27. We'll be right back.